Today I get to review a watch from a brand I'm not so keen on. Will it change my mind? Hello. Let's get into it. Yes! Welcome to the Mad Watch Collector channel, the show that does watch reviews a little differently. Today is all about the Tissot Seastar 1000, a dive watch that was released in 2018. Now there is a reason why I don't review many Tissots, but put simply, okay, so I'm not a huge fan of Tissot. None of their designs really appeal to me, and if they do, there's always 3 or 4 glaring things that stick out like a sore thumb. There is no denying about their history, but that's one of my bugbears. Tissot loved telling you when they were first established. You don't see Longines' logo with 1832 on it. When we talk about the Seastar, that first came out in 1954, and it was like a waterproof dress watch. Now the actual Seastar stayed looking like this dress style watch right into the late 90s. It wasn't until 1971 that Tissot had a watch with a diving rotating bezel on it. The closest thing that resembles a Seastar of today is an actual date or the PRX, which the longer time goes by, I just see it as a huge cash grab for the Swatch Group. It was a watch released that looks more like an Audemars Piguet Royal Oak than it does the PRX it's supposed to be representing. I think what Tissot does well is very elegant and simple dress watches, and that's another reason why I steer clear of Tissot, because dress watches ain't my bag. Now the watch I'm reviewing today comes from Francis & GAYE Jewelers. They are an authorised dealer of the best Swiss and non-Swiss brands you and I love. Sign up to the mailing list and you get 10% off already, but give Ryan an email, tell him I sent you, and you may get treated a little differently. So this watch is £620 on the Francis & GAYE website, and I guess it's time we saw the watch. Are you Tissot ready? Let's go! Okay, so here it is. And the very first impressions you get, this is definitely a desk diver, meaning that this watch isn't really meant to be worn whilst diving. It's too shiny, it's too blingy.
It's too jazzy.
I do really like that sunburst deep blue of the ocean dial. Case, crown and caseback is stainless steel. The watch looks solid, well made. I'm not sure about the design on the sides of the case. Maybe a designer was bored one day. Do love the big chunky coinage crown at 3 o'clock, protected by some decent sized crown guards. Not a fan of the polishing on the tops of the lugs, but I think this is a watch designed for those wanting a diver at the office. First impressions, well, it's a well-made watch, there's no doubt about it, but I'm not sure about the look. Quick spec check! Okay, so we got a 43mm diameter case.
Oh.
It's 13mm thick, which is quite nice. 49 lug to lug, and a non-strapaholic lug width of 21mm.
Tissot, what the heck are you doing there?
The dial is protected by a sapphire glass on the front. Round the back we have an exhibition case back, but the glass is mineral, not sapphire. We have a screw down crown and a screw down case back, which gives us that lovely 300 meters of water resistance. So a diver that can do the job if you want it to, but like my face,
it's too pretty to get beaten up.
the case back is oh, for Oh, do you remember the Hoovers I used to sell in the 80s, dear?
Yes.
I swear they were called Powermatic 80s. And welcome to another edition of the Design House, where we take a look at a watch's case back, and today the Tissot Seastar 1000. And I am rather excited about this. Let's take a look. Oh, and an exhibition case back. Look at it. Oh, showing the beautiful movement, the Powermatic 80. We don't have a sapphire sandwich. This is just mineral, but I don't care what it is, so long as I can see this hugely popular and ever reliable movement. Beautiful signature Tissot counterbalance just sets it off a treat. Man twixt machine, cogs and wheels, springs and bridges, whatsits and do-whats. So there you go, a beautiful case back from Tissot. I'll see you next time for another edition of the Design House. Cut. Talking of hoovers, dear, we could do with a cleaning up here.
Could you just click that like button, please? It really helps the channel. Thank you.
It's a dive time bezel, unidirectional, 120 clicks, big chunky coin edging. The insert is ceramic. I always feel that ceramic looks a little bit cheap if the design of the watch isn't spot on. The numerals are in silver, which is weird. I would have liked them to be white for good legibility, but we do have a lume pip at the upside down triangle. Let's see how it does in the World Bezeling Federation. Hi, I'm Kurt Santana, and welcome to the World Bezeling Federation, dedicated to find the best bezel on a watch. 3 rounds: the look, the grip, and the fidgetability. Let's get a bezeling. Okay, we got a 120 click unidirectional with a very big coin edge. On the face of it, this bezel looks pretty good. And onto the grip. How much do I have to twist before the first ratchet? Is it too light or is it too tight? And oh, this thing is loose. Looser than Mr. Lucy's pocket of loose change. And onto the fidgetability. How much do I want to twist this bezel? Morning, noon, and nighttime. Well, it's not very satisfying, it has to be said. But there is fidgetability there as it's so light. So that puts the Tissot Seastar on our leaderboard for 2022. Bye-bye, bezel lovers. Loosey-goosey, isn't it? Not a great bezel action, it has to be said. There is ratcheting to it, but it sounds like, you know, when you run your finger along a comb, you know what I mean? Just sounds like that. Really sort of tinny. Not a bezel I'd be proud of anyway. Okay, let's look at the face.
Dial time.
Well, the only thing I like about the dial is the colour. It's almost fume style, isn't it? But it's a sunburst blue going right out to the edges. We've got a chapter ring around the outside for the minutes. We have applied silver framed indices going along the outside of the dial. For the size of this dial, I think these indices are way too small. Makes the whole dial look a little bit out of whack. I also don't like how the markers hang over the edge of that blue dial. Everything on the dial is printed. You've got the logo Tissot and of course the year it was established. Below the handset we've got this Seastar logo, which I haven't seen on any of the vintage Tissot Seastars, and to me it looks a little bit like they've copied Yeah, that's right, Airwolf. What a show that was. It's a bit busy down there, isn't it? Underneath the Seastar logo, you've got Powermatic 80. Below that, we've got a bit of a convoluted 30 bar, brackets 300 meters. Interesting enough, in the actual marketing photos, there isn't any numerals regarding the depth on the dial. And I think that looks so much cleaner. It just looks a bit too busy, doesn't it? Because below the text, we have a date window. And although I love symmetry with my dials, I don't like the fact you can see the next number just in the corner of that window. That's not a good look. And onto the handset, and to be fair, they just look too big. Too big for this dial because of the size of those small applied markers. If they were bigger, then the handset wouldn't look out of place. I'm not really a fan of the counterbalanced T on the seconds hand, nor am I a fan of how small that lollipop is at the end of the seconds hand. Everything on the dial just looks out of place, disproportionate, and the wrong size. Apart from that, all good. I also noticed with the handset you get
Your watch out.
Well, today I have the beautiful SPB 153, the Seiko Willard reissue in green. I've got it on an Uncle Seiko bracelet and I'm absolutely loving it. What a beautiful reissued stunner. So we've got lume on the bezel pit, lume on the hands, and lume on the markers. Out of 10, let's see how this one glows. So yes, BGW9. Although the lume stays around for quite some time, it never gets bright. I'm pretty sure you can buy this watch with a bracelet. I've got this rubber silicone strap. I'm not a huge fan of the outer part of it. Very gimmicky T coming out from the lugs, but I love the texture inside. Really good solid buckle, and I think this is going to be quite comfortable on the wrist. So as Tissot are a part of the Swatch group, they can take advantage of the lovely ETA movements. And just like Hamilton with their H40, Tissot have come up with a Powermatic 80, which is basically an ETA 2824 with a much longer mainspring and a lower beats per hour. So it's only ticking away at 21,600 beats per hour, but you get 80 hours of power reserve. Really nice to operate thanks to that big chunky crown. We have hacking and we have hand winding, and it's a good solid movement that's not going to need too much babying.
Hello.
On my 6.5-inch wrist, and do you know what? 43mm, I would not have guessed that this was 43mm. It doesn't look too big on my wrist. This is thanks to the slender 13mm thickness and the way those lugs slope down, but someone with my wrist could easily pull this off. So there we go, the Seastar 1000. Has it changed my mind about the brand? No, not really. If anything, it's cemented it. Positives on this watch, I do like the colour of the dial, and although it's a cheap looking outer part, it's still quite a comfortable strap. And I guess you got to give a bit of credit to that Powermatic 80. It's going to be a while before it needs servicing, and it keeps pretty good time. I don't like the case design, it's weird, that side polished bit. I'm not a fan of polishing on the tops of the lugs. The size of the markers are too small, the handset's too big, the loom isn't great, too much text on the dial, and it just sort of looks like a very generic, you know, ticking every box diver. Also, the bezel action's pretty bad. The one thing I will say, it is built well. You know, Tissots are made well. It's just that all the design elements, when they're put together, just don't look right. Like I said at the start of the show, you can buy this watch for £620. I personally would not buy this watch. I'd be much more inclined to spend my money on a Hamilton. This review has cemented my thoughts on Tissot. They are a brand dedicated for a watch enthusiast's entry into the Swiss watch world. If you want to get a Tissot that looks like a Seastar from the 50s or 60s, my advice is to get the visit date. Here it is, my wife's first impressions of the Tissot Seastar Powermatic 80. No, don't like it. Looks cheap. The bezel looks cheap. The dial colour makes the watch look cheap. Looks rubbish. Okay, so listen, we've all got different tastes when it comes to watches. What I think is nice may not be nice to you.
But that's what makes the world go round, my friends.
So if you own a Tissot, own a Seastar, you have my respect and admiration as usual. Thanks for watching another show. Don't forget to like and subscribe. From me, the Mad Watch Collector, I'll see you in a tick, 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 a tick. Second, every hour, every minute.